La 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 tita.
In this video, we're going to learn how to use some of the modeling tools located in the toolbar, as well as some of the modification tools that are going to help you out during the modeling process. Now let's start with a quick reminder about our drawing screen. We've got the X, Y, Z axis, and the axis is actually in perspective view, which means all of the lines and shapes that you are about to draw are heading towards a vanishing point or two on the horizon. So they're not going to appear parallel or perpendicular when you start drawing, and I know that's going to make it feel a bit awkward, honestly, but SketchUp actually has figured out a way to make it easy to draw the lines and shapes so that they are parallel and perpendicular despite the perspective layout that they gave us. So let me show you by starting off with the line tool. It looks like a pencil in the toolbar, or you can type the letter L and your cursor will automatically update to look like a pencil. Now the first way to place a line is to click to start the line, and you'll notice that as I move my mouse out, the line is attached to the cursor. When the line is black, it means that it is not parallel with the axis, but as soon as it turns red, green, or blue, there's green, here's red, blue's a little harder. You'll know that you're on it when it says on blue axis. That means it is drawing parallel to that axis, and this is what we want to have happen most of the time. Rarely do we draw our homes or commercial spaces with rooms that are not perfectly square or parallel and perpendicular to each other. Now when you know where you want to drop the last point of the line, simply click. Let's see, I'm going to go way out here, and there I've drawn the line. Now you'll notice that the pen tool behaves as though it wants to continue drawing. To end the drawing command, hit Escape or the spacebar on your keyboard, or you can select the black arrow in the toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and hit Escape, and I am out of that particular command, but it is ready to continue drawing with the line. The second way that you can draw with the line tool is to draw a line with an actual measurement in mind. For instance, maybe I want to draw a line that's 9 feet long. I click to start the line, I move it into perspective, and then I look at the bottom right hand corner of the screen before I click the second point. It says length, and it has some measurements inside of it. Now it corresponds to the length of the object that I'm drawing. So I could try to stretch my line out to the correct measurement inside the measurement box, as you can see I'm doing here. But that's actually a little tougher, and there's an easier way to go about it. So instead I'm going to type 9 and apostrophe, because apostrophe is the same thing as saying feet, and then hit enter, and you'll see that it draws a perfect 9-foot line. You can also draw lines according to the z-axis. So I'm just going to go straight up, and I can go up again 9 feet, and there I've drawn a line at 9 feet. So yes, it does look like the line below is shorter than the one above, but that is again because we're drawing in perspective. I'm going to hit escape. Now if you ever have a hard time finding the right angle to draw your lines parallel to any of the axes, use the arrows on your keyboard to make the line snap to that parallel. So I'm going to start another line. I'm going to drag it out a little, but hey, I can't figure out, like, maybe I can't find the green part of this. Like, I keep thinking it's this way, or maybe I think it's that way. If I hit the left arrow, it's automatically going to connect to the green access line. If I hit right, it will automatically go parallel to the x-axis or the red line. And if I go up, it's going to automatically go to the z-axis. Just a quick trick of the trade, but remember, for the most part we do want our buildings and spaces to be parallel to one of the 3 axes, and this shortcut could save you some much needed draw time. And I'm going to hit escape. Alright, well I got a lot of lines on my screen, and I could click on each line and hit delete on my keyboard if I wanted to, but I'm going to click the black select arrow button, and I'm going to click in an empty area just to the bottom and right of all those lines, and I'm going to drag my mouse with the clicker held down, and I'm going to Let's just do something like this where it just kind of touches some of the lines. That was called the selection box, and I'm going to do it again. It's a dash box. All you do is drag it from bottom right to top left. Anything that selection box touches will become selected. Now I'm going to hit escape and I'm going to show you what happens when you go from the top left to the bottom right. Top left to bottom right. Only the objects that are completely inside the selection box will select. It's not just what it touches. So if you have a specific area or object in your models that's kind of hard to select, this might be a good tool to help you find that object and select it without actually selecting the objects around it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and select all the objects and delete them by hitting the delete on my keyboard. And I'm going to show you what happens when you close a shape using the line command. So I'm going to type L for line, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. So let's do a rectangle, snap it to the green line. I'm going to do 9 feet. And then I'm going to also snap it to the right, and I'm going to hit the right arrow key to make sure I get it perfect. And then I'm going to type 12 foot 6, enter. And it will draw a 12 foot 6 inch line for me. And then I'm going to come back and there's the green. I'm going to do 9 foot. See how they are not parallel to each other at all, but it is drawn in perspective. And then watch what happens when I click back where I first started. Whoa. It's not just an outline anymore. The rectangle is actually filled with a color. So SketchUp calls this a face. So it understands that we essentially just created a plane, and this plane is something we can push back or pull up on using the push-pull tool located in the toolbar. You can also type P to activate this command. So I'm going to go ahead and type P, and you'll notice the cursor changes. When I click on that tool and then click on the face, you'll notice how it kind of highlights as I move my cursor over it. But as soon as I click and I move my cursor up or down, I'm actually creating a 3D object. Now pushing or making your cursor go down makes the object form below the original plane, and pulling or moving your cursor up makes the object form above the original plane. Once I have a three-dimensional object and I know exactly where I want to, I just click to get it to stop. But you'll notice as I start moving my push-pull tool around that it highlights different faces. I can now push or pull that face to create a different look to that 3D object. I can do the same thing over here. Whoa. And I can still make it go up and down. So that's a very handy tool when you're making 3D objects. Now wait, this gets even cooler, like 20% cooler. If I take the pencil tool over in the toolbar, and I'm just going to kind of snap it to the midpoint here, and I'm going to draw a line all the way down and click to the next midpoint. What happens when I push the push-pull tool is it has now created two faces on the same original face that I had before. So now I can move those separately, and I can even move this separately if I wanted to. Holy cow, look at that. Say what? Oh yes. You can see how this can really help you create some unique shapes. Now I'm going to use my black selection tool, and I'm going to select a face, and I'm going to hit the delete on the keyboard. This shows you that what you are drawing is not a solid shape, but instead a hollow one. So it's just something to keep in mind when you are pushing and pulling planes. I'm going to select Control Z on my keyboard to undo, and that way we have object with all the faces attached to it. There are other tools that we can draw with, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything that I just drew, and I'm going to delete it so we can demonstrate some of the other drawing tools. The rectangle tool will draw rectangles quicker than the line tool will, so simply click to start a rectangle or type R for rectangle, and you'll notice that my pencil now has a little square next to it. To start a rectangle, click and move your mouse out so that you can preview where that rectangle is actually going to be drawn. Once I have a spot, I'm going to go ahead and click, and you'll notice that it actually made the rectangle much quicker than the line tool did. Now if you want to draw a rectangle using measurements, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the rectangle, and it actually always puts the rectangle in perspective for me. I don't have to worry too much about trying to align it with the axis. It's already done for me. Now you'll notice over in the measurement bar, it now says dimensions, and there's two set of numbers, the first one and the second one. And as I pull it really long and really short on the other side, you can see which measurement goes to what. So the first measurement actually is related to the x-axis or the red axis, and the second one is actually related to the green axis. So knowing this information, I can now type in anything that I want. So let's do a 7 foot and apostrophe, and then I'm going to do a comma to separate the two dimensions. And then I'm going to do a 12 foot 6, and then I'm going to add a space to put a half an inch. That's basically how you would add any kind of fractions to your inches. It's always with a space and then inch, or the quotation mark for inches, and there it's drawn a 7 foot by 12 foot 6.5 inch rectangle. So again, when you're putting in dimensions, feet first followed by an apostrophe, inches followed by a quotation, unless you need to add a fraction to the end of the inches like 6.5, and then it would be 6 space half quotation. That's how SketchUp knows and reads dimensions when you're typing it in. So that's all there is to a rectangle. Let's look at the circle. So the circle is located over in the toolbar underneath the rectangle, and you can also type C for circle. Because we are in a perspective view, the circle is going to show as an ellipse until you are orbited above it. Now the circle behaves by placing the center of the circle first, and then either drawing out at random the radius of the circle, which is half of the diameter, or if you look over in the measurement area, it also says what do you want your radius to be. So if I type in 7 foot 8 space 1/4, so 7 foot 8.25 inches, and then hit enter, you will see that it made a circle with a radius of 7 foot 8.25 inches. So again, the circle behaves by placing the center of the circle first and then drawing out the radius. The polygon tool located right next to the circle is also extremely similar except for one small step. Before I actually place the polygon down at the measurement bar, it's asking me how many sides do you want your object to have. The minimum is 3, the maximum is 24. And once you've typed in the sides, so let's do 24. Let's see what that looks like. 24. Enter. Now I can place the polygon, the center of the polygon, and I can have it come straight out. Now wait a minute, 24-sided polygon sure looks an awful lot like the circle, right? I'm going to use the push-pull tool. I'm going to pull up the circle so you can kind of see. And hey, this brings up a really great example. If any of your shapes or lines overlap and you use the push-pull tool, it's only going to take full shapes. So if something's overlapping, it's not going to connect that. It's only going to connect what is not overlapping. So there's my circle, here comes my polygon. Oh, so see the difference? There's all these faces on the polygon, but there is not that same thing here, and you actually see that you get a universal no symbol on the circle face when you try to do the sides. But here I could pull these out, and I could do like a gear shape. That'd be kind of cool, right? Oh yeah, there we go. Here it is. Oh yes. Now I've got a lot of shapes going on again, so I'm going to go ahead and select everything and delete it. Oh, missed a couple things. That happens. There we go. Oh, missed a couple things again. It happens. There we go. I'm going to show you the arc tool next. I personally like drawing with a 2-point arc. You can click on the button or you can type the letter A to activate that command. To start drawing, the first click starts the arc, and you can see how even in preview I can snap to the axis below. The second click ends the arc, but the third click is going to give your arc the depth or the direction that you want it to go. Now if I use the pen tool and sort of connect the dots here, you'll see how it can create its own shape, and I can push and pull that as well. The last tool I'm going to demonstrate is going to be the free-handed sketch tool that's located over in the toolbar. Like the polygon tool, unfortunately, there's nothing to type on the keyboard. It doesn't have a shorthand command. Boo. But the freehand tool is exactly what it sounds like. You can draw any shape that you want to have, and as soon as you end it, it kind of ended it for me a little bit and gave me that really weird little doolop thing, but as soon as you do, you can push and pull and you can create some really unique shapes. It's a little bit shaky to draw. It takes some practice to work with it, but once you close the shape, it acts just like any other shape would. Now I just want to take an opportunity to kind of go through and go through the orbit again with you. So I'm going to click orbit, and you can see how you can kind of look around the shapes. You can take a peek and see what that actually looks like outside. You can zoom in or out. So going up zooms in, going down with my mouse zooms out. You can kind of see how that works. Zoom window, maybe I want to look at this corner right here of the object. You can see kind of how that works. Zoom extents is going to take everything that I have and put it all inside the window just like that. And then of course the pan will allow you to kind of go up and down, left or right as you need to kind of maneuver around. So there's a lot of different options for how to look at your objects once you've drawn them. So that basically ends this demonstration, and look at all that you learned from this video. You learned how to draw lines and shapes randomly or with precise measurement, how to make your objects perfectly parallel or perpendicular to each other despite that crazy perspective view layout that SketchUp gives us. You learned how to push or pull faces into three-dimensional objects, and you even got some experience selecting, deleting, orbiting, and kind of zooming around those objects. You learned lots. Now on to the next.